Welcome to Michael Potts F1, everything Formula One, but from a photographer's point of view. Round 11, Red Bull Ring, Austria. The Red Bull Ring. The Red Bull Ring is located just outside the Austrian town of Spielberg, nestled in the Styrian Mountains. It's a beautiful racetrack, running through the forest, lots of undulation. We have very changeable weather, which creates a very dramatic landscape for photography. Here is a photograph of Carlos Sainz coming around turn 9. The car is positioned between two Austrian flags painted on the track. Here is another photograph of Max Verstappen on the same corner but taken from the other side of the track. As you can see, the image is completely different. Here, Max is rising over a hill with a forest behind him. The iconic feature of this racetrack is this bull statue towering over one of the grandstands. These elements, along with the natural beauty, make the Red Bull Ring a unique place to go motor racing. This weekend, we have a change in format with the addition of a sprint race. This is one of only 3 sprint races during the course of the year. The previous one was in Imola, and we have one more coming up in Brazil. This completely changes the format of the race weekend. On Friday, instead of 2 sessions of free practice, we have 1 session of free practice and qualifying. This means the teams don't have enough time to prepare their cars going into the weekend. It should mean there's a lot more unpredictability and hopefully a lot more exciting racing. On Saturday, we have 1 practice session, which is now relatively redundant because the cars are actually locked in at the qualifying session. So there's not much that the teams can change during this time. They've really got to just hope that they don't crash their cars. Saturday afternoon is the sprint race. The sprint race is a short format race, in this case only 24 laps. This doesn't give teams a lot of time to develop strategy. There's no real advantage of stopping for fresh tyres. So it really is an out-and-out, flag-to-flag sprint to see who can be the fastest on the day. The results of the sprint race give us a starting order for the race on Sunday. Drivers get awarded points for where they finish in the sprint race. It's not as many as they would get for the feature race. Other than that, the race format for Sunday hasn't changed at all. Zhou Guanyu. After his horrific crash at the British Grand Prix, it was incredible to see Zhou back in the paddock. Not only back in the paddock, but also racing this weekend. I think that's probably the greatest testimony to how safe these Formula One cars are. To have gone through the crash that he did at Silverstone, and to be able to put your race suit on, put your helmet on, and get back in the car and do it all again the next weekend, it's quite mind-blowing. It was also amazing to see how many photographers had lined up directly opposite the cars at the start. A couple of them not necessarily behind the protective fencing. Zhou didn't have a particularly good race weekend. He only qualified 18th, managing to get up to 14th in the sprint race and staying at 14th for the feature race. I think their poor performance is completely understandable considering the context. It's just great to see him back. The Orange Army. Max Verstappen fans have been coming to Red Bull's home race for many years. Tens of thousands of them have been travelling from the Netherlands, a lot of them camping around the track. This creates an amazing carnival-like atmosphere. Flares going off, loud music. It's quite something to behold. Pretty much all of the fans are decked out in orange. Orange is the Netherlands' national colour. It originated from the Dutch royal family, the House of Orange-Nassau. William of Orange was the founder of the Netherlands, and so every time the Dutch participate in sport, you'll see them decked out in their orange. Whenever there's a national festival, the streets are filled with people wearing orange. And this is where we get our Orange Army from. It created quite a dramatic spectacle around the racetrack. Whole stands were turned orange. Qualifying. With qualifying taking place on Friday, this gives the team 2 hours less to fully develop their setup. This probably contributed in catching the 2 Mercedes drivers out. In the last session of qualifying, both Lewis and George crashed. I unfortunately missed Lewis's crash, but I did get George spinning off in the last corner. It's not uncommon for drivers to crash here. In fact, Nico Rosberg crashed in 2015 in exactly the same spot, also driving a Mercedes. George compounded his difficulties by picking up a fine for illegally crossing the track after he crashed his car. Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel brilliantly used his platform this weekend to raise awareness about the declining population of bees. This is a very, very important subject. Bees pretty much hold our entire world together, and without them, agriculture will come to a stop. Here he is wearing a brilliant Save the Bees helmet. This is not his first bee-related project. He recently created a bee hotel in the shape of a car. Along with all the positive headlines, he also managed to create a bit of drama where he walked out of the press briefing on Thursday, much to the ire of the stewards, who had a very busy weekend writing out fines. Race-wise, it wasn't particularly strong for him. He qualified last, finished last in the sprint race, and finished last in the feature race. Weekends like this are going to raise some interesting questions for Sebastian. He's 35, he's a 4-time world champion, he's done pretty much everything anyone could hope to do in the sport. However, he moved to Aston Martin with the hope that the team would develop into something better. Instead, the team's actually gone backwards, from being a race winner pre-Aston Martin to being one of the teams most likely to be knocked out in qualifying one. His contract is up for renewal at the end of the year, and while the team is very interested in keeping him, I'm not sure he has the same desire to be making up the numbers. This could mean either he retires or he moves to a team with much better prospects. The drivers' market. As we head to the last few races before the summer break, this is an important time for drivers to secure their position with team or gain promotion to a better team. This is the best time for drivers to show their value. There are a couple of drivers whose futures aren't entirely secure. Up until 2 weeks ago, one of those was Mick Schumacher. Up until Silverstone, Mick hadn't scored a point, and he had caused some pretty horrific crashes, costing the team a lot of money. However, he's managed to put together 2 very solid race weekend performances. First points in Silverstone, and now 6th place in Austria. Hopefully with a few more performances like that, his future will be safe for another year. 2023 race calendar. A few rough drafts of the 2023 race calendar have been circulated recently. And while none of this is official, it looks like we're going to have a 24 race season next year. Russia is definitely off the calendar. We already know that China is back, and Las Vegas was announced earlier this year. There's also strong indication that we'll be racing in Kyalami in South Africa. This means that 2 more races will need to drop off the calendar. Possibly France and possibly Spa in Belgium. These races might come back on a rotation basis. As I say, it's not official yet, but I'm quite excited about the prospect of racing back in Kyalami. There'll need to be a little bit of work to bring the track up to Formula 1 standards. However, it should be spectacular. It'll be great going back to Shanghai. The race has been off the calendar since COVID. And Las Vegas. Las Vegas is going to be mad. The current track design includes a straight running down the entire length of the strip. Pierre Gasly. The start grid to any Formula 1 race, even a sprint race, is always chaotic. I managed to catch this photograph of Pierre just before the start. Here he is sitting against the barrier, having a moment to himself. I shot this quite low down to give you a sense of intimacy and kind of bring you on the same plane as he is. I hope that kind of gives you that sense of quiet, stillness, thoughtfulness. Unfortunately, the start didn't go that well for Pierre. He was involved in an incident which lifted his car off the ground, almost flipped him. I thought we had shades of Silverstone happening again. But luckily for Pierre, he landed on his wheels and was able to continue racing. Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen looked imperious the whole weekend. He looked untouchable. Fastest in qualifying, convincingly won the sprint race. I was sure that he had the whole race weekend bolted on. So it was a bit of a surprise when he was overtaken by Charles Leclerc during the race. Here are a few photographs that I took of Max during the course of the weekend. The first one is him in front of one of the orange grandstands. I've slowed this down a little bit to give a sense of movement and separate the car from the fans. If you're interested in how I took any of these photographs, have a look at the settings in the bottom corner of the photograph. And if you like any of these images, there's a link to my shop where you can order your own prints or digital downloads. The images can print to a variety of sizes on different papers and finishes, so I'm sure there'll be something that suits you. The next image is Max arriving on the grid. This is quite funny. All the other drivers had arrived. Max must have taken a bit of a slow lap around the track, trying to soak in all the atmosphere of the crowds and the orange and the flares. So when he arrived, he was traveling quite quickly, and I was in the middle of the track photographing him. We had a bit of an awkward moment. I wasn't sure if he's going to go left or right of me, so I just stood still and hoped for the best. The last one is Max climbing out of his car on the grid. Sunlight's glistening off his helmet. I just felt there's a lot of drama in this image. The grandstand in the background framing him nicely. Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton always arrives at the track wearing something fabulous. Here he's wearing a blue crochet top with a matching hat. I just like this image. It shows his happiness, his joy. He obviously has a lot less pressure on his shoulders than he did last year, and he's seeming a lot more relaxed. He didn't have a great qualifying. He crashed in Q3, giving his team a lot of work to get his car ready in time for the sprint race. This photograph was taken at lap 4 and shows him behind the Haas and the Alpine. He would overtake both of these and go on and finish third, which is quite a remarkable turnaround. This is his third successive podium, and it shows that Mercedes are getting stronger and stronger as the season develops. The next race, in France, is on a track that's particularly well suited to them. I wouldn't be surprised if we see one of the Mercedes drivers celebrating at the next race. Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz looked certain to be following up his win in Silverstone with a second place in Austria. However, a dramatic fire, just as he was about to start challenging Max Verstappen for second place, ended his race. As the flames licked around him, he couldn't get out as the car was still rolling backwards. The marshals eventually got to the scene and he was able to escape his burning wreckage. This is a photograph of him walking back from the crash. The paddock is completely deserted. You can see the disappointment in his face. He's just lost a potential second place. Not only that, this could affect his ability to challenge for the championship. He's now many points behind his teammate, and there's going to be a point where Ferrari will favour one driver over the other. And at this stage, it doesn't look like it's going to be Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc. After 5 races of having the rottenest luck, Charles managed to pull off an amazing win. Coming to Red Bull's home race and beating Max Verstappen is a truly remarkable feat. He looked dead and buried in the sprint race. Max seemed to have all the answers, and somehow he managed to find an extra bit of speed, and everything just lined up perfectly for the win. This is a photograph taken a few seconds after the team celebration, where he's running away from his teammates who are about to shower him in champagne. This is not only a great result for Charles, but it's also a great result for the story of the 2023 championship. It now brings Ferrari back into the fight, and hopefully we'll have a few more interesting races. Personally, I don't follow a particular team or driver. I just love the stories, the drama, the intrigue. So I love anything that adds a little bit more complexity to the story of the season. Thank you for watching my 2022 Austrian Grand Prix race review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I was able to show you some of the beauty of the Red Bull Ring, the colour of the fans, and the drama of the race. If you like this, please do like and subscribe. There's going to be much more. Next week, I'll be doing a race review of the 2022 Monaco Grand Prix. Thank you for watching.